Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay.
Well, it's kind of a legacy thing, right? Is Microsoft, I think, it's been around a long time, so maybe an older company or some people that have already established, they've already got stuff about that. So
That's fair.
Maybe someone founding a brand new company, they don't have that weight behind them.
Not at all. Yeah, they probably wouldn't be able to afford the licensing fees or any of that. You know. Good?
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not saying anything bad about .NET. It's great. Keep going. That's just, you know, not where I come from. Nothing but respect. So like I said, my name is Cesar. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for joining this talk. Like it says here, it's getting started in tech. The basic premise I would say about this is you all have already made the decision to start studying tech and code. So you're one step ahead in that. And in there, I kind of want to frame what it's like to work in tech, what you can expect, what sort of decisions I had to make in order to get started in there. And my hope is that by the end of it, you get a better sense of the journey that it takes and that you're better prepared to enter the workforce. And at the end, I'm hoping to maybe answer some questions that you have. For all that, let's just get right into it. Just a little bit, just real short about me. Cesar, I'm the lead developer at Supply, which is a local design company here. Before that, I founded my own company with 3 of my other friends. That was Untitled Studios. I sold that in March and then joined these guys at Supply to kind of like the fact that there were 4 guys that started their own company out of Ziba. Ziba is like this big design company here. The ones that I know them best by, you know, the Heinz ketchup bottle, not the glass one, but the squirt one. That was the design company that designed that. So 4 guys from there decided to start their own stuff, and I joined them. Super excited. And I've also been an instructor at Codefellows, which I'm no longer an instructor there. I'm sure Tech Academy is great. A little more about me. Technology really is my passion. That wasn't always the case. I actually used to be an accountant in my previous life. And that was really not for me. I would best describe my life in accounting a little bit more like this. I genuinely hated it.
Are you the panda, or the boy, or the guy?
No. I'm this guy, and that's accounting coming at me. Yeah, so I remember thinking, and listen, if any of you guys is like significant others or parents are accountant, I'm sure they're nice people, you know? It's just, it wasn't for me. I remember thinking to myself, like, man, when I'm past 30, I'm still gonna be coming into this suit and tie and thing, and I don't think I could do it. It's not my personality, you know? So I remember looking for ways out, and I remember coding my first HTML page, just HTML. I remember doing div, h1, you know, P, and then writing something and looking at the browser, and I was just like, oh my God, people get paid to do this? This is crazy. I didn't have a single developer friend, so it was completely foreign to me. And I would say that my life in technology now is more like this little guy. I love it. I want to do more. I'm always trying to like learn more and get like bigger challenges and all that stuff. And like I said, my life now is here with Supply, which is pretty great. But I'm actually not here to discuss any of my roles or what I've been doing. I'm just kind of here to discuss more about my passion in technology and how to get started in it. So in order to do that, I want to start first by talking a little bit more about what is the tech industry, because it's genuinely, that's just like a big word that encompasses a lot of stuff. So let's just kind of compact that a little and see what that is. There's from developer to project managers, there's like a wide array of careers that you can take within the tech industry. And so most of these, some of these career paths are like web developer, but you can also be an iOS developer, you can be a software developer, you could be a .NET developer. I've even seen posts for Angular developers, whatever that means, UX UI developer, QA engineer, so information architect. There's a bunch of different things that you can be. And all of those career paths could be in different industries, right? It could be, you can be in development agencies, you can be in a creative agency, meaning you can be in a development agency, or you can be in a design company, or you can be in a private corporation, you can be in healthcare, all these different things. So what I would say getting started in tech, one of the most important things that you can do is to define the industry that you want to work in. For me, it helped me because I know that my personality type, I like to move fast and get new problems, and I like to iterate over them really quickly. And so a web development agency, which is like we talk to clients and then they tell us they want to build something and then they give it to a group of us and then we just build it really quickly. That's kind of what I was drawn to. If that fast-paced nature is not something that is aligned with your personality, maybe something more like a product company where they have, you have like a month or 2 months to really think about a feature that needs to get added, and there's a lot of meetings around the specs of the feature, and it's a lot slower pace and more thought out. Maybe that appeals to you more. So the industry in which you choose to join will define a lot of your day-to-day responsibilities and the pace that you will be developing on. So that's something to think about when thinking about joining or a workforce. And then on top of that, depending on all these different agencies, you've kind of already done that by deciding which language you're studying. But figuring out which language to study will also impact your pace, your day-to-day, right? On what you do. For example, there's a lot more thought that goes in when you're going to do a software like a Swift or an iOS app. There's a lot more thought and a lot more complexity to building a program like that than there would be for a JavaScript, HTML web page. Also, and I'll just end it with this, you could be building static sites or you could be building web applications, right? So depending on what you choose, which company you choose to work for. So anyway, just a little bit more, just so you can understand. That was me, like genuinely, that's me as an accountant. And then after I made the switch, that was me as a developer. It's like worlds apart, and I cannot believe that I'm doing this. It's awesome. But with this picture comes another question, which is kind of what's the tech culture like, right? If you are all making the switch from another career, or some of you are, or some of you just starting in the workforce, you know, and if you had another job at an office, you know how that culture is. It's very like, get here at 8, very, very strict, everybody's on the same pattern. And I can only speak to development agency, because that's kind of where I've come from, so it's very different there. It's more relaxed environment, kind of get your work done when you can. You just know that you have that deadline in 2 weeks, and you kind of like self-manage to get that. You'll see a lot of this, just a bunch of computers, everybody with their headsets and nobody talking to each other, but there's like a crazy conversation in Slack that everybody's sharing. Some late nights just because you have this one project that needs to get finished out right now and it's being built, so then you and your buddies go play some foosball or ping pong or whatever while you wait. That's more of the culture that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, again because I chose a more fast-paced, more dynamic company. The tech setup is not something like this. Is a little more calmer, just that. I made the mistake of going to the bathroom. That's my computer. So that's a little bit more. That's just a bit of what to expect as a like in an agency or sort of environment. But that brings us up to then what is a web developer, and hearing you all talk about. A lot of you are in .NET. There's still a big space in web development for .NET, especially on the server side of things. So let's talk a little bit more about a web developer and just define that. I'm talking about this because I feel like my career has been kind of split down the middle. I've been doing web development and I've been doing iOS mobile development, right? So I'm going to speak to the web development side of things more because I feel like in order to get started, at least for me, it was a very nice entry into coding and what to expect. Once I had that foundation, it was only about layering, adding more layers of complexity to it, but I didn't start with the complex stuff. I started with the more easy stuff. So let's talk about like just web development in general, right? So type of programmer that focuses on web applications. Simple as that. Specifically those, like I said, in the .NET world, I would imagine more of a back-end services that you build, and then in the front end being ingested by some form of a library, of JavaScript library, right? But it's still an application in of itself. You would be dealing with data and handling asynchronous requests and all this good stuff. The front-end technologies, which is why I asked to see where everybody was, would be primarily focused around HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is probably why that is in most of your classes. That is rinse and repeat, that is your life. I would say that these are the foundations of any language, basically. And I would also say that once you learn HTML and CSS and you try to build something that doesn't have HTML and CSS, you'll miss HTML and CSS because it's that good compared to the other side of things. So yeah, the front-end technologies, again, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, these I would say the foundations. And the way that I kind of did it, I taught myself. I wasn't fortunate enough to come to a boot camp or anything. I was just obsessed, and I would do taxes from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. Then I would go home at 7:30, and I would study from 7:30 till midnight, and then rinse, repeat for a whole tax season. I didn't have somebody to help me out and teach me the ways until I met, and this is something that I would give you all as a resource, to find a mentor. Until I found somebody that actually cared about me progressing was when I really was able to understand better and start figuring out things that I didn't know I needed to know, right? The things that you don't know you don't know. For me, it was Ken Stowell. He was a senior developer at the time. And so one piece of advice that I would give you all is to get a mentor and somebody that is invested in you and wants to see you succeed. And somebody that you can feel comfortable going to and asking questions, and that you trust that whatever answers they give you are the correct answers. For that, I would recommend genuinely going to meetups and all that stuff. The other thing that I will say, my career here in Portland, it's been like 6 years. The key seems to be who you know, to be able to be placed in different jobs or being aware of opportunities. So going to meetups and getting to know each other will go a long way. That's usually how I get jobs. I don't know. I got the first job. Yeah, from the first job, it was through Ken. Ken was like, "Hey, I've been working with you for a couple months now. You're doing great. Do you wanna join this company?" I was living in LA at the time, so moving to Portland, why would I do that? I have my whole life down here. Like, why would I? I researched the company. It was Metal Toad at the time, and I was like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." And I moved up here, and then ever since then, any job that I've gotten has been because somebody's like, "Yo, I want to work with you, dude. Like, we're doing this thing. You want to join us?" It's like, yeah, I want to do that. So again, I can't stress this enough. It's,
So how many meetups do you go to a month or a week?
well, now I'm too busy, but I'm also not looking. Before that, I would almost religiously go to mentorship Saturdays. I think that's Metal Toad's mentorship Saturdays. Are you familiar with that? I don't know if they stopped. No, but you should look into it, because the beauty of that is if you where in the course are you currently? Are you mid-course? Did the semester just start, or are you on the tail end of the course?
Self-paced.
Yeah. Self-paced.
Start anytime.
That's cool. Well, when you start getting to the tail end of things and you're kind of shifting from learning to actually focusing more on finding a place to be for a job, and I'll talk about this more, you'll probably be working on something and you no longer have access to a group of people that can answer your questions. You might be on your house by yourself. So you need to be surrounded by developers, but you don't have a job to be surrounded by developers to ask questions, right? So the beauty for me was that Mentorship Saturdays gave me that outlet to other developers. Hey, I'm working on this. I'm kind of blocked on this. I've been, looking at Stack Overflow and like trying to debug this, and I can't. Can you help me? And then somebody that knows goes in like, oh yeah, man, your bug is this semicolon over here or whatever. And then you're like, oh great, gets you unblocked. So knowing that there's a place that I can go to get unblocked was the beauty for me on Mentorship Saturdays. Apart from that, solving problems together kind of bonds you. So then, like, fast forward 6 months, you're like, hey, man, how you been? Oh, I'm at this place. It's hiring. Cool. And then this is kind of how my mentor and me was. I kind of just went on a rant. Forgot to put that one there. What I will say, though, and now that we're speaking in terms of being at the tail end, I know it's self-paced, but let's say that you're at the tail end and you're about to go get a job. The beauty of this is that it's a skill-based career, right? Like, you either know how to do it or you don't, which is amazing. The other thing about that is that if you know how to do something, then you can display what you know how to do. So here comes the portfolio, where you get to display what you're capable of, and that's kind of what the companies will see as whether, hey, we're going to hire this person or not, right? I really like that because we get away from the whole like, hey, I come from this university kind of attitude, and it just goes back to like, here's my portfolio, this is what I'm capable of, and then the person goes, and then because you're going to be doing that same thing when you join them, so then they go and see this, oh, this is exactly what we need, you've done it, boom, you can just hit the ground running. It's pretty great. Also, the portfolio kind of shows how much thought and effort you've put into it, and so they'll use those as metrics to see whether they hire you or not. So let's stay with the portfolio a little longer. It sets you apart from other developers, right? And also it helps with driving the conversation at the interview, because you've already established like basically your script on how you want to tackle this interview, right? You're nervous, you want them to hire you, but if you have your portfolio and you've kind of, one of the things that I did, and I'm getting a little out of the script, one of the things that I did was I would see what they were looking for, and then I would fill my portfolio with things that they were looking for. So for example, they said junior web developer when I started, they needed them to know Bootstrap, Sass, and Compass, which is like a Sass thing, and Angular or something. So then in my portfolio, the items that I built, I made sure to include Bootstrap, I made sure to include Sass, and so when I went to the discussion with them, I was able to drive the conversation. I was like, oh, I see you're looking for somebody that knows Bootstrap and Compass. Here's what I built using Bootstrap and Compass. And so kind of matching like, hey, you're looking for this. Yeah, I'm right there. So that's one of the benefits of it, and I would highly encourage you to do it. And apart from that, other skill sets that you can showcase. I will say, though, that when talking about the portfolio, I took the advice of my mentor, and he said to have 3 things. He said have a design like a landing page, like just so that you can display your basic HTML, CSS skills. He said have a functional one, so where you are actually manipulating data. So the one that I did was very simple. It was a hot and cold game where you put in a 9, and then it was like, oh, you're hot or you're cold, and then that was it. It was still in jQuery, but it shows that I was able to like handle events, event listening, and I was doing it in jQuery at the time, and I could handle that stuff. I can handle JavaScript. And then the third one, he said to have theater, so something flashy so that they remember you. And the one that I did that was like a theater one was a knockoff of Mario. So I made a little HTML5 game, and I called it Marcio because the asset that I had was like a little astronaut. So I was like, that's my theater one. So when I went to the interview, I showed them the HTML one, I showed them my stupid little hot and cold game, and I showed them my Marcio HTML5 game, so that they remember me. So that's the best advice that I can give you. Like functional display and then a little theater, something shiny. It could be whatever you want. If you like read 3 blog posts on blockchains and want to do your small implementation of blockchains, hey, go at it. Like just something that they remember you. This is the best advice I can give you. Oh yeah, and I did a Myers-Briggs personality test. That was the other one, just because I like that stuff. So I was like, might as well build something for that. Cool. What I will say about all this is like the best thing, genuinely, is that you're not alone. You know, we're all in this together, all developers. You know, you can see it in Stack Overflow. You can see it in our open source community. Like you're never really alone. Which I have to stress that because as an accountant, I really felt alone. Like none of these people cared. You know, if I had a question, nobody was like eager to answer it. They just wanted to let me know that they knew better. That's not the impression that I've gotten in the tech community. Everybody's so willing to share their ideas and tell you why, and share that with you. Which brings me to like open source, which is just like outside of our local environment. There's like millions of people out there that want to help us out and answer our questions. So yeah, if so far I've kind of thrown a lot at you, I'm just trying to cover all my bases, so don't let it throw off. In general, with these types of conversations, what I've noticed over time is that I try to cover kind of the basics, and then there are some questions that come up, call them like fears of when the concerns that people have. So I'll try to address some of those beforehand. So for example, am I too late to start on web development? No, not at all. This moves so fast that even if you start next year, there's probably going to be a new fancy JavaScript library that nobody knows and has heard of, and then you're starting at the same time as everybody else learning it. So it's never too late. Technology moves so fast. Am I crazy for doing this? Yes, and that's exactly what we need you. You need people who are bold, that want to tackle challenges, that are not afraid, 100%. And the best part is that with the internet, you have a huge reach. So like if you come up with something that nobody else has come up and you throw that out there, your reach to like improve the lives of so many people is just easily accessible to you on your fingertips. It's awesome. I have a talk that's called How to Change the World in Your Underpants. Has nothing to do with this talk. Just want to let you know because it's so great, right? Like you can literally work from home. So that's the part of the underpants. There's nothing special about them other than other people are not seeing you. You're not going into the office like that. And can I do this, right? Can I actually, I'm studying code. Could I actually be a developer and actually have a job? Yes, 100%. Because once you get into the job, we'll do it together, you know? So definitely. And then I would say the one that most crucial is how long would it take me? And the answer to that, if I give you, is just a personal opinion here, I would say it takes you about a year to just be a rookie. And for my experience, it took me about 4 months-ish to kind of learn the basics and stuff like that. Then it took me about another 4 months to build my portfolio. And building the thing was kind of where I learned the most, but I needed the foundations of the previous 4 months. Yes?
How much this time were you an accountant?
No, the whole time.
So you're working full-time while doing it?
Yeah, full-time, and then I just wouldn't, I wouldn't have a life, basically. Because, I'll tell you a little, like, as an accountant in tax season, these people are working 100 hours a week. That was my life. That was what I was used to. And I remember that I was pulling in like 80 hours a week, and I was the chump of the group. Everybody was like, "You're not working hard enough." I'm like, "What?" And I wasn't working hard enough because I wanted time to go home and study. Like, you're doing this accounting stuff. And then over here, there's this shiny computer programming thing that you're like, "Oh my God, you can do what?" So anyway, so it took me about 4 months to build my portfolio with the help of Ken, kind of guiding me, and it was really up to me and the level of effort that I wanted to give it. Again, I put down there like the little secret was loving every second of it because it didn't feel like a job. It didn't feel like anything. I felt like that's exactly what I want to be doing. And I also remember when I did my first HTML page, and I was like, holy shit, like people get paid to do this. And then I like Googled the salary of web developers, and I'm like, and they get paid how much? Well, that's crazy. So it all helped. It just seemed all cohesive to just keep going. And I bet you that's the same for you all and why you made this decision. And then I just kind of had to put that here because she usually is at my presentations, so it's just like a little shout out. So anyway, so those were addressing most of the fears. So I would say like, next steps, you've already made the decision to study that. So I could only encourage you to just keep going, right? That's genuinely it. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome for a lot of reasons, and now I'm getting like completely off script, and I'm just telling you like my own experiences. It's really cool to know that I'm working in this company right now. We're building really cool shit that I like. And if I ever were to leave this place, I know I have this network of people that I can just be like, hey man, you want to work together? And they're like, yeah, I think we have something. Yeah, come over. Like it's great to have that sense of security. Also, it's great to know that I'm going to be working on stuff that I know how to do, and I love what I do. So it's also very cool that I'm not bored at work, except this week. This week was very boring, but we did most of the features last week, so that I don't have a lot to do this week. And they promised us a ping pong table, but it hasn't gone there yet, so I got to deal with that. But for the most part, it's good knowing that I can work on stuff that I like. I am familiar with the tech that I'm working with, and if somebody presents to me a new piece of tech, it's awesome. It's like, yeah, sure, I'm about to pick up this thing now. Like, I'll be just in my tool belt now. This is great, and I'm not afraid to go into new challenges. Which, again, I can only put it in terms of accounting. It's the same problem 1,000 times. It gets boring. It's like putting like water from this to this, and then water from this to this. It's not very exciting. This career and this path is very exciting. You're constantly challenging your brain, solving new problems, keeps you going. So for the most part, that's it. Genuinely, I would love to take time now to take questions. Just say like really thank you for listening, and if I can help you out in any questions that you might have, please let me know. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. You mentioned that it took you about a year to become a rookie. Once you started your first job, how long do you think it took you to feel like that you were no longer like associate level or entry level?
I would say it took me, after I started, it took me about 6 or 7 months to feel like I got this and to keep going. And the reason for that, it wasn't like it just happened. It was that I would work hard at it. Like, and I can only frame it into my own experience. Like, again, I was working 12-hour days, and then I would go home and like study for another 4, right? So by the time I got the job, which was just big in and of itself, and I was there, and we're in this beautiful place with like ping pong tables and foosball tables, and everybody has the shiniest computer. As soon as they gave me a task to do, like there was nothing else for me. Like all my life was, my whole thing was like, I need to figure this out. What do you have to do? And then they would give you the CSS tasks, like the easy stuff. Hey, yeah, you paint that red. And you're like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. What about that database thing? Like, can I tackle that hard problem? And they're like, I don't know, man, you're kind of new around here. It's like, sure, okay, well, pair me with somebody. So from the get-go, I would try to get the harder stuff, I was never afraid to do more. Because the instinct is to like play it safe so that, because you're constantly having to battle with the imposter syndrome, especially when you're starting. So the instinct is to try to take the easy stuff, because then they won't find out that you suck. But the thing is that everybody thinks they suck. That's the thing. Everybody is like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do it. So like that's a shared feeling. It's just the people have been doing it longer than you know how to manage it a little better than you that just started, so it'll be heightened for you. That feeling never goes away. And it's constantly being reinforced when, have you all had the discussion about how software gets made, agile? You've had that? So if I say like, when you're at the backlog grooming meeting, you know what I mean? Creating this, I can break it down, it's real simple. The way software gets made is there's a bunch of things that a user needs to do, and we call those stories. So as a user, I need to be able to log in. As a user, I need to be able to log out. As a user, I need to be able to add a thing. Those are a bunch of stories. Then as we collect all of those, and then we have a meeting, and it's a long meeting, and then everybody goes, okay, this story, as a user, I need to be able to log in. What do you think it is? And how much level of effort do you think it is? And that level of effort, we measure it in Fibonacci sequence. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. 1 is super easy. 3 is like, 5 is, 13 is like, we need to break that down. So far so good. So we add points to all those, and then we add all those points out, and then we do nothing. You pick from the list, and then you go for 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, we stop, and we count how many points we did. Let's say that we did 30. From then on out, our velocity is 30. So we know that we can tackle 30 points every 2 weeks. We go back to the list, and we say, oh, we have 60. Oh, we can do this thing in 2 weeks. I left a lot of detail out. That is like the broad strokes of it all. But for the most part, that's how software gets made. So what I was trying to answer your question is, instead of me picking the 1s and the 2s, I would try to get the 3s and the 5s. And if I really didn't know what I was doing, I would say like, hey, I'll take the 3, and maybe you can pair me with the senior developer so that I can learn to tackle the hard stuff. And that's why I think that I was able to develop faster. Because at some point, because this really is repetition, at some point it just clicks with you, and they go like, hey, we got that complicated database thing. And you're like, oh, I was the one who did it. I got it. And it helps in so many ways, right? You earn the respect of your peers. You're more prepared. People know that they can count on you. People are also a little afraid of you because you seem too eager to do the hard stuff. But for the most part, they review your code, and then they are going to give you a lot of feedback. Hey, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Which at first can be intimidating, and again, it'll heighten your awareness of like imposter syndrome, like, I suck. But over time, those reviews get less and less and less and less, and that's how you measure your progress. You submit something, and a bunch of other senior developers look at it and go, good job. And I would say that after about 6 or 7 months, I was at a point where I was like confident that the code that I was producing was up to the standards of my peers. That was good. I gave you a lot there. Any other questions? Genuinely, you can ask anything.
So today you predominantly code in JavaScript and front end?
Yeah. So right now, and this is something that I've noticed, so right now for me, I would say like I'm doing mostly React. We're doing something called React with GraphQL, and the backend is AWS with Lambdas, which are just self-contained functions. So, because I'm at a startup, so the costs, we don't want to spend too much money. We're not like a established company. That's not true. We're a startup for Nike, so we have money. But still, we want to keep costs relatively low, so we're doing serverless. By doing serverless, we don't have to spend as much money on the infrastructure and maintaining all that stuff. We can just kind of lean into AWS and all their serverless architecture to kind of function as a backend. It's not a proper one. It's just this new thing that people are trying. It's working out. And then for the most part, React. And I don't know if you've already touched on REST servers. We seem to be moving out of REST servers, and we're kind of adopting this GraphQL way to access data, which is pretty cool. Why is cool?
What's the rest of
REST server. So let's say that you need to get all my items. Like it's a to-do list, and I need to. What are my to-dos? Well, the REST server is the thing that on the back end that would give you the information that you need. If you're thinking about it from data is stored in the back end, and the front end ingests that data. So you store my to-dos in the back end, and then you expose my resources through a REST API. All that means is that, do you know how to do asynchronous? Do you know how to get something, like a fetch or a get or a post or a put? So a little bit. So there's 4 things. You either create a resource, you either update a resource, you either delete a resource, or you read a resource. So it's CRUD, C-R-U-D, yeah. So REST is the means by which you ask for that information. So a REST service will give you those CRUD, will give you 4 endpoints for you to do one of those 4 activities, one of those 4 things. So that's what I mean by REST. So the way that we've done it classically, which is by opening up an endpoint, going like backend, my ID, and then /to-dos, so I can get all the to-dos by this ID. We seem, or at least I just noticed that we seem to be getting away from that, and we're going into this new Facebook way called GraphQL, which you specify what you want the backend to give you, and the front end has more choice as to what to ask for. That's kind of more into the weeds, I would say. All I can tell you, like from a higher level, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and it's cool to see it evolve because we haven't really addressed RESTful for a while. It's been always the same for a couple of years now. So like having this new way, it's kind of cool and interesting. If you blog anything, you'll say, why GraphQL sucks, and then you'll Google it again, why GraphQL is the best thing since sliced bread, because that's just like the nature of blogging in tech industry.
Are you building the APIs, GraphQL APIs? Or?
Yeah, so in this project, I am not building the APIs in terms that I'm not the one who codes it, but I am on the front end asking like how I need it to be, and I have him do it. Have I built the GraphQL endpoint? Yes, I'm building like my own product right now, and I'm using it with GraphQL. And it's GraphQL, but with a Python flavor on it, because my product is very numbers oriented, so it's a lot of data. So I'm building that with GraphQL. It's pretty cool. It's called Graphene.
Python. And do you choose GraphQL because of React? Or?
Cool. Yeah, I chose GraphQL because I see the horizon, and it seems to be leaning that way, and I want to get ahead of that. And also in the company that I'm working on right now, we all collectively said, hey, we're going to head that way, and I was like, yes. So I want to be prepared for my job, and also seems to be the future, so I want to be prepared for that. So that's why I chose GraphQL. Also, like once you use it, you're like, why were we doing things any other way? It's kind of how it feels with new technology, just in general. Yeah, that's a good question.
You recommend Python as well?
Oh, I love Python. Yeah, I mean, I was telling you earlier. I feel like the goal should be to be language agnostic. Like certainly pick a language now to kind of learn the foundations. But after you've been doing this for a couple of years, like it doesn't really matter what language they tell you to build it on. Yes, there are some language-specific syntax that are always nice to know, because it makes you just a better insert programming language expert or whatever. For the most part, you will get to a point where it doesn't really matter. Like, hey, what do you know? Python. Oh, well, we're building this in Ruby. You think you want to take a stab at it? Sure. Like, it'll be the same. Like, oh, how does Ruby loop through an array? Oh, it's this. But you already understand what it's like to loop through an array. You already understand, like, a little bit better big O notation, or, like, how to make things not take long. And then it's just the flavor of that language. There's nothing really past that. The foundations are the same. Sorry, am I talking too much?
Is
Do you have
Python kind of the language that you suggest? My understanding of Ruby is that it's kind of a more simple simplified Python, so if you try to specify or those simpler functions,
So let's see.
if you're trying to learn that and then apply it to Python, it wouldn't be as applicable
So-
as if you were to learn Python and try to apply the language.
Yeah, I don't think it would matter enough to decide one way or another. I think if you don't know any language, then whichever one you pick will propel you miles ahead, right? Because you're going to learn the fundamentals of programming itself. And again, an array is an array, an object is an object. There are certain nuances to different languages that kind of apply, and you'll learn that as you go, but you don't have enough context right now to really know what the difference is. So that's why I have to say, like, it doesn't really matter. But let's say that you landed on Python. Python is a great language to learn. The beauty in Python, I would say, is like they're so opinionated as to how things need to be, and for somebody who's starting to learn, those opinions are very meaningful because they're holding your hand and telling you like do it this way, and also it's very readable. Like it's like I always say that it's like for kids, and which is this because they teach Python to kids, but it's very readable. There's not like funky stuff. The product that I was telling you that I'm building it in Python because I like the language. It's fun. It's object first. It's objects are first class. It's just cool. I like it. I enjoy it, and the documentation is good. Whenever I get lost, there's a lot of support for it. There's a lot of data stuff that kind of I'm working on, so it kind of makes sense. It's fast.
So they don't care that which language you pick to develop in. That's fine.
It's more like project driven. So the project that I'm working, and also like I have other devs that I gotta make decisions with them. So so that's kind of how we decide the languages. But also like you use the tools for the right job. So it doesn't. That's what I meant in the beginning when I said like the goal should be to be language agnostic. So then when you have discussions, it's like, okay, what do we need? What is the thing that we need? And then you can choose to build it in PHP because PHP would be the better solution for this. Or you build it in .NET because that is the right one for the job. And it doesn't matter. You can just jump in and start, doing C#. It wouldn't matter. It's the same thing. Like, especially when you start getting into backend and MVC, model view controller, like that's not going away. So no matter what you do it, you're going to build it that way, either in .NET or you do it in PHP. Same MVC concept. Any other questions? You guys feeling ready to like go and work, or are you feeling like, ugh, I don't know about that? Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully you get a loudmouth like me in there and make things easier for you. Yeah.
Yes. Back to the portfolio. Did you have anything about your back-end skills?
No, because I was going for a front-end job. I always wanted to go into the back end, but in terms of me teaching myself the back end, that always seemed like a bigger hurdle. Like I never felt like the fact that I am able to put something in HTML and refresh the browser and see my changes seemed like an easier and smaller barrier that I would need to jump than going to the back end where you don't really get errors, just things don't happen. And when you're just like new, that seemed intimidating to me. It's not until I got comfortable over here that I was like, oh, okay, what's happening back there? And then I started doing using debuggers and those things, and then I was able to get a grasp on the back end and feel comfortable. Cool. Well, hey, there's a bunch of pizza back there. Go for gold. And if you have any questions, genuinely, you can reach me at any of these, and I'm happy to help answer whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah.